into now the conversation about Alex Bregman. And like I said, this has been the most popular conversation for both the markets I've lived in. Chicago is talking about Alex Bregman going to the Cubs, and Detroit is desperate. Feels like so much of the media and so much of the fan base is desperate for Alex Bregman to come to the Tigers. And honestly, this is so weird. Like wearing now the third hat. I'm wearing an A's hat right now, but I'm definitely a Tigers fan number one, Cubs fan number two. I think I'd rather have Alex Bregman go to the Cubs than to the Tigers. What's going on with Bregman right at the latest is he's come out and said he's not interested in anything but a 6 or 7 year deal. And to that, I immediately thought of the line from Rounders. Yeah, and I want a blowjob from Christy Turlington, but it's not going to happen. So, just the idea that like we've gone this far into the offseason and no one is clearly offering him that, and he keeps saying that, and his agent Scott Boras is saying that it's not going to happen. And what is going to happen is he's going to have to settle for either less money or fewer years. And at this point, I think he's 31 years old. He's seen his numbers decline, not dramatically, but they have declined over the last 3 years. I don't see a 31-year-old getting necessarily suddenly better. I don't want the Tigers to sign another 6-year albatross deal that they continuously have done over the last 10 years that have burned them. You could start with the Miggy deal, the Miggy extension. That's a mixed bag because they did not win the World Series, but he certainly helped them be one of the most competitive teams in the American League, if not all the majors, all that time. The last several years of that was horrendous, yet we were treated to milestones such as his 3,000th hit, which I witnessed live, his 500th home run. Those were fun. You're not going to get any of that shit with Alex Bregman. So in the waning years of his career, his deal with if he comes to Detroit, how quickly people forget about the almost the identical deal that the Tigers gave to Javi Baez is amazing to me. How they just want to jump right into bed with another 6-year deal. He was only 140 million. The Astros originally offered him reportedly six years, 156 million. So for Detroit to get him, it would obviously have to be more than that. So it's pretty much speculated it'd have to be 6 years, 180 million for him to come to Detroit. The advantage that Detroit has is we have his former manager that he might have a fantastic relationship, and AJ Hinch. They might have a terrible relationship. I don't know. They won a World Series together, so I would say it's probably pretty good. But I thought they were going to be able to parlay that kind of thing to get Carlos Correa a few years ago, and that didn't come to fruition.
No, you definitely thought that.
Yeah. So whatever the Tigers have to do, whatever the Tigers have to do to get him is they're going to have to overpay, and I do not want the Tigers to do that. They are not in a position to be able to absorb yet another failed long-term contract.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. But don't you feel like this is starting to shape up to be another failed Boris bullying attempt that's going to turn into a $30 million contract with 2 option years?
Yeah, and this is where I'm going with it, actually. They have absolutely overplayed their hand. It is so obvious. He would have, if anyone was willing to give him 6 or 7 years for 180 million, he would be signed already. No one wants to do that. Teams have dropped out of the race. The Astros say they're done at this point. The Blue Jays were involved at one point, and they're out.
Yep.
There's 3 teams left: Tigers, Cubs, and the Red Sox. Red Sox is an interesting scenario because I think he would want to play there. They've got the Astros have the ridiculous bandbox with a short porch in left field that Alex Bregman has taken advantage of for years. Just the ridiculously short distance to the seats in left field. Well, the Red Sox have the fucking stupid green monster. So he'd go from one ridiculous miniature golf course of a stadium to another one, hit the ball in the clown's mouth, and you win the World Series.
Wow.
I've raged against Fenway
the machine
for a long time.
Rage against the Fenway.
Yeah, I have done that for a long time, but it's just a stupid ballpark when you think about it. But So I could see him going there, but they have maybe the best third baseman in the majors in Rafael Devers. So he would have to move to second base
Yeah,
for
don't
the
fuck
rest
with
of his time. So
don't fuck with the baby face assassin.
does he want to do that? I think that is a potential out there. I think the Cubs would be the of at least my two teams that I'd want to risk getting Alex Bregman, or that could benefit from getting Alex Bregman. I'd want the Cubs to get him, because I think if the Cubs get him, it would be a short term deal. It would be, like you said, like a pillow deal. The like what Bellinger
Correa did.
signed.
And Correa too.
Correa did the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
time, yeah, like
yeah.
a 3-year deal, but with opt outs after every year, but with big ABV or annual value. So big money, but not long term. I don't think he would do that with the Tigers necessarily, but I think he would do that with the Cubs. And the Cubs can certainly absorb that. I spent the whole first half of this podcast talking about that. They have plenty of money to be able to do something like that. So I think why this is taking so long is GMs like Scott Harris and Jed Hoyer are taking their time. They're not gonna continue to bid against themselves or each other, because they know Scott Boras and Alex Bregman have overplayed their hand, and they're gonna have to lower their asking price. So I think it's more likely he goes to the Cubs, or at least I'd be happier of my two teams if he went to the Cubs. I could see Boston stepping in and ruining the whole parade, but uh, just because I think he'd maintain his good numbers for a while with that ridiculous ballpark. I think his numbers are going to decline rapidly, but I think he's probably got a couple good years left. I think that's a perfect scenario for the Cubs to sign him for 3 years for $100 million if they have to.
Right.
They could do that, and I think that'd be a great scenario. It would be. Would I? The question comes back to, would I rather have Cody Bellinger or Alex Bregman? And the Cubs, I guess the Cubs' bigger need is at third base. They have first base and center field covered. That's where Bellinger got a little redundant. So that's where it made some sense to trade him, but not for pennies on the dollar like they did. Um, so I think maybe the Cubs would be up closer to that Pacoda projection. You said it's 90, almost 91
Yeah.
wins. I
Yep.
think if they sign Bregman, it puts them right there. Um, he would do similar things for the Tigers, but again, the price and the years they'd have to pay for him to come to Detroit, I think, would be way too punitive. And if they didn't put it all together and magically win the World Series in the first 2 years, it would be, the law of diminishing returns very quickly, and just be another huge albatross of a contract for the Tigers. So
I have.
yeah, I put together a graphic already for this segment. I'm saying
Of course you
Bregman is,
did.
it's just, I mean, it's fucking 2 degrees out in February. I've got to do something indoors. So I put a graphic together called Crossroads with the Cubs C and the Detroit Tigers D at the end. So that's where Bregman is. He's got to make a fucking decision.
What do
Hopefully
you think?
soon.
What do you think about this? There's been a pivot move that's been floated out there for both teams that, uh, since they are the heavy favorites for Bregman, that either team, whoever loses out, will pivot to Justin Turner.
Mm.
What are your
I've
thoughts
seen
on?
that.
What are your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. I saw that proposed today, specifically for the Cubs. Turner he's old. How old is he now? I didn't look that up before the show, but
He's got to be old. He's older than Bregman. That's
I
for
would say
sure.
I think he's late 30s, not early
Yeah.
30s.
Yeah.
So first initial ideas, no thanks. Cubs would make a little more sense than the Tigers doing that. Uh, the Cubs do have Matt Shaw, their top prospect, is a third base prospect. So they could always lean back on that, but that is a risky proposition for a team that should be going for the division, should be going for a long playoff run. That's very risky to have, throw all your third base eggs into one basket that's never played in the majors. So I
Right.
think that might make more sense for the Cubs. Tigers still have Matt Vierling to play third. They have Andy Ibanez that can play third.
He's
It
40, by the way.
is he 40? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
He did have a
yeah.
1.5 WAR last year, though.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I think it would make no sense for the Tigers. Tigers can the thing that the Tigers are going to do if they don't get Bregman is they've got enough assets in their robust minor league system, they could trade away prospects to actually get a major league third baseman. I don't know who that would be immediately, but I think that's their plan B, their pivot. But I think I could live with it in Chicago. I don't think it'd be ideal. I don't think it'd be great, but it'd be better than starting with Matt Shaw. It would give Matt Shaw a little bit of a cushion. You could bring him up later. You don't have to rely on him on opening day. I think that's where it might make more sense. But it's an interesting. The key to that question you have is there are options, and that's another reason I think Boris and Bregman have overplayed their hand. Because the Cubs don't have to sign him, even though a lot of fans are demanding it. Same way in Detroit, like they definitely don't need to sign him in Detroit. They can figure out other ways to fill third.
Word Hole Media.